to Newsmakers. I'm Lisa Oligas. Children's programs were recently inducted into the MSSU Regional Media Hall of Fame. Today we look back at two broadcasts locally, the Fun Club on KOAM and KODE's Bar 12 Ranger. Let's begin with the Fun Club. Welcome to the Fun Club, a lost jewel of KOAM programming. These grainy reels may not seem like much today, but at one time, generations of local kids clamored for their 15 minutes of fame on this iconic children's show.
It was just a pretty big deal to come out here and be on the Fun Club.
We remember sitting in the bleachers at the Fun Club, so that was a big deal for us at that time.
It was very popular. It was a big deal, yeah.
A big deal for the countless children who made an appearance on the program, running from 1958 until 1985. The Fun Club had everything an area boy or girl could want: cartoons, puppets, music, even an authentic Hollywood cowboy.
His press clippings say he was 6'8", and I don't doubt it. And then he put on a 10-gallon hat to do a show and his cowboy boots. It was just enormous, but friendly, and nobody seemed to be intimidated by him.
This is Lloyd Andrews, better known by his stage name as Arkansas Slim. Originally a Western character actor from Gravette, Arkansas, Andrews joined as a co-host of the Fun Club in 1963.
Slim was a movie star. He had played in a bunch of two-reelers, sidekick to Tex Ritter and other cowboy stars. And he always rode a mule named Josephine.
After Andrews left Hollywood, he brought his trusty steed along with him in the form of Josephine the puppet.
I remember Josephine. Was it Josephine the talking mule?
One thing you could see is that the little kids really liked to go up and pet Josephine.
So Josephine had big buck teeth and long floppy ears. Very nice puppet. And so Josephine would talk like this.
Well, he would throw his voice. I can remember him making up this funny noise or sound of the voice of the mule. And it was just funny. And he would kind of crack corny jokes, you know. And of course, as kids, we thought that was funny.
It seemed like Josephine sang in different voices a lot, which I wondered, you know, just how talented is that mule, you know, to be able to do that. I never noticed that when Josephine would come on and do her songs, I never saw her and the 49er together at the same time. It took me years later to realize that he was the one who was doing the puppeteering backstage.
Occasionally, Josephine was joined by the second puppet character seen here, a wrinkled old man named Gabby Gus.
And I remember him well because the Gabby Gus that Slim was using was made out of latex rubber. And latex, even if it's cured, at some point, everything that was liquid returns to that state. And he was starting to fall apart. So he hired me to make a new Gabby Gus for him.
Dale Switzer, a retired KOAM employee of 47 years, occasionally directed the Fun Club during his early days at the station. His previous experience making puppets for the on-air commercials allowed him to assist Andrews with this special project.
And I had never made a full three-dimensional puppet before, but I made one for him and charged him $9 for it. Slim was actually kind of a Hollywood hanger-on. He was the old 49er character in a Los Angeles TV station. But TV was changing quite a bit from the way it had been in the 50s. And that change overtook the bigger markets in the beginning. And so he found himself out of work. And so he went to Fresno. And there was a little independent station, and he played the 49er character there almost immediately after leaving Los Angeles. And then eventually the changes caught up to him there. And on his way back home, he stopped here. And change had not overtaken us and wouldn't for several more years.
Along with star power, Andrews brought astonishing musical talent to the Fun Club, providing the singing voices for Josephine and Gabby Gus, as well as his weekly instrumental performance.
He could supposedly play over 100 musical instruments, some of which weren't real instruments, of course. They were a length of rubber hose and a spring from a spring door. But he could make music out of anything.
I want to say a guitar or a accordion.
He would play, you know, like Bye Bye Blues on his little farfisa, and then honk the horns and stuff, be his little one-man band self, and we thought he was cool too.
And Slim would play that doggone pipe organ. It was a foot pedal pump organ, and he had corncob pipes across the front instead of actual pipes. And so everything was a corny joke.
It was the same fun day in and day out. As Switzer recalls, the Fun Club used the exact same format for each weekly episode.
The script was in their heads. One episode of Fun Club was exactly like all the rest. The only real difference was the number of kids. Sometimes he would have a swarm, and sometimes, especially if the weather were bad, you'd have 6 or 8 kids and a lot of jot cartoons.
You know, if I remember correctly, it was just kind of whoever showed up.
They wanted to see that same show, but starring them.
Kids would have their birthday parties there, and I think that's mainly how you would get on there.
And they would make paper crowns with the glitter, you know, whatever your age was, and then they would introduce you on the show what your name was and where you were from, because it was popular from Columbus to Fort Scott to Parsons to all the surrounding areas up there.
They were there in their crowns and their parents, and of course you'd always pan the audience at some point.
For KOAM traffic manager Jill Nelson, the Fun Club was both a childhood memory and a part of her job. After appearing on the show twice as a child, she later went to work for the station and was enlisted to assist in the show's production.
We taped at the same time every Friday, so every Friday we prepared the studio for the Fun Club, which meant putting out bleachers, getting out the little barn for Josephine the mule, and sometimes if it was Christmas we had Santa Claus.
Jill especially recalls the birthday crowns used on the show, which she occasionally helped to make.
They came in our offices, handed us a stack of red construction paper and said, the lobby is full of kids, start making crowns. And we're talking a very basic construction paper crown. They brought us the red construction paper, glue, and glitter. And we started, you would put their age in the middle of the crown, like a 6 or a 5, whatever birthday it was. And we were churning those things out fast. And as the taping began, and they kind of like would hook them behind the kid's head, we noticed the glue and the glitters dripping off of the crowns because we didn't have time to let them dry. We felt terrible, but I don't think the kids noticed.
One of the Fun Club's long-standing hosts, television reporter Roger Neer, would bring out his microphone on each episode of the show, asking visiting children for their name, age, and school.
It was a little scary because we knew that Roger Neer would be coming around with his microphone and interviewing us, and you know, by the time by the time he got to them, they would just be struck dumb.
Some of those kids, you never know what they were going to say.
I do remember my sister being with me, and she was maybe 2 years old and not real verbal yet. But Roger Neer came up to her with a microphone, and he said, "And what's your name, little girl?" And she just looked at him, dumbfounded. She couldn't even squeak a word out. So, being a helpful big sister, you know, I said, "Her name is Amy." And he just kind of looked over at me, and he said, "And how old are you?" I said, "She's 2." And he said, "Let her talk." And it's just like, oh my gosh, my face must have turned 50 shades of red.
Though the show is fondly remembered for its puppets, music, and charming hosts, Many of the children watching at home were most invested in the Fun Club's weekly cartoons. In the program's early days, it was even named after a cartoon character.
And then it was known as Popeye Fun Club.
They showed cartoons. They showed the Popeye cartoons.
If the show came up short, didn't have a whole lot of kids there, Slim would always talk to each one of the kids, find out where he was from. And then to fill the time, there were Jot cartoons. Those were provided by the Southern Baptist Radio and Television wing that had little cartoons with a character named Jot, and they always had a little moral, and they were free. So,
you know, you liked the cartoons and you liked a lot of what they were doing with the kids, and that was all there was. I mean, you had these kids programming. You weren't going to have the adults come in and turn the station because it was kids programming all the way until it was time for the news.
In the 1950s, the show's host even took on cartoonish personas. Here's Tom Freeman, a KOAM sportscaster who hosted the original Popeye Fun Club under the pseudonym Uncle George. Next to him, the precursor to Slim Andrews, a local celebrity, Rex King, known as the Cowboy King.
Once you started rolling, it just kept going. You would break when it was time for a Jot cartoon.
The Fun Club kept rolling for nearly 3 decades. But as changes in television production eventually caught up with the local station, the show finally reached its last episode.
Media in general, things like that were just kind of phasing out. And it was kind of sad. It had probably ran its course. Things were changing. But, and it was a sad day when I remember when that ended. And it seems like it had kind of been struggling there at the end.
We changed hands. A company from Delaware bought us and started doing away with a lot of the things that were mainstays of the heritage of KOAM. And one of them was Melody Matinee.
Another local treasure, Melody Matinee, was a daily program that featured regional country music performers and entertainers, among them Slim Andrews himself.
But they were kind of making a clean break with the past. And if there wasn't going to be a Melody Matinee, there was no reason for Slim to come up on a Friday and do Fun Club. And so that went away also. A lot of people really missed Melody Matinee, and Fun Club had been just such a tradition.
An unfortunate casualty of changing times. Over the years that followed, Switzer received many requests for footage from the show.
All right, kids! I wouldn't mind watching a few minutes of one of those shows if somebody uncovered a complete show of it or something.
You know, the most common question we get, probably to this day, is, I was on Fun Club, and they will give approximately when. Do you have any tape of that Fun Club by any chance that I could get my hands on? And one day I did the math. It would have been a $75,000 investment in videotape to keep the tape of the Fun Club, which obviously we weren't going to do. And then it would have taken up an entire room.
For 31 years, there was hardly any footage of the Fun Club at all. Virtually every reel had been taped over, destroyed, or lost, victims to the inexorable flow of technologic progress. Then, in 2016, a small miracle happened. After receiving a tip from KOAM's promotions director, Dale discovered an old film reel dated to 1963 with the title KOAM TV Christmas written on the case.
I looked at it and didn't get back to Vance. I immediately bought it. Just paid the buy it now price because this sounded too good to pass up. And in the beginning, this was weird, but I had no way of really looking at the film. I did have an old projector, but it was an old projector, and if this were a real find, I didn't want to test it out on the film I had just bought. So I would take a little bit of film and hold it up to a light and a magnifying glass. And oh my God, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. This was like a treasure trove.
The faded reels revealed clips from the Fun Club, Melody Matinee, and even a KOAM Christmas party. In 2016, KOAM shared these treasured memories with its viewers through the 5-part documentary series, The Lost Reels.
It is a heritage that we don't think about, I think. We think of TV always having been sort of like it is now, or like it was in the 70s and 80s. But you go back to a time when you realize there was no videotape, everything was live or on 16mm film.
For all the former viewers of the show, the Fun Club is fondly remembered, a cherished weekly source of entertainment, excitement, and comfort.
The idea that our faces and our images could like be broadcast, you know, miles and miles away. We just thought that was really fascinating. You know, that was like really high tech, and we thought that, you know, that was just one step later would have been Hollywood. You know, we're just really on that trajectory there.
It was exciting. It was just fun.
I think it was just more the fact that it was something that you knew was going to be there.
A lot of people still in the 4 states will recall being on Fun Club. It was a ritual you went through. At some point, it appeared just about everybody of that generation was on Fun Club or watched their friends on Fun Club.
Bar 12 Ranger with Ranger Ed Wilson was a program produced at KODE TV. Take a look.
I watched him ride his horse, right up from the distance.
The opening credits showed Ranger Ed coming in on his horse. You know, he just looked very heroic.
I can see it in my mind, but I'm not sure if it was actually Ranger Ed or if they had some stock footage of somebody that comes up, rides in the horse, and then at the end, the horse would ride off because the show was over. But I remember that vividly, even after, 6 decades have passed.
He was the Bar 12 Ranger. The show on KODE TV featured fictional Ranger Ed Wilson. Only photos exist to show us the cowboy who took kids on a cartoon journey.
But mainly the ones that my sister and I remember are the Little Rascals. I think he showed the Little Rascals.
He had the horse that come on, and he was a cowboy, and he was, and then basically it came on, they'd have a little deal, and then they'd have cartoons. We were mainly there, unfortunately, for the cartoons.
I know I liked him because he had cartoons on, and I like cartoons, and it just was a pleasant way to spend a half hour.
He had the live segments where he would bring things in of local interest. I remember he had a magician on, and he would come on there fairly often. I remember that he had 2 doves, and I remember their names. They were Dacky and Dee Dee. And he would just like make them appear from under a handkerchief. And I always wondered, where they went when he put the handkerchief on them and then they disappeared.
Julia Stone remembers Ranger Ed reading school menus.
It's like he was kind of giving us the heads up as to what might have been coming. And if they were like serving tuna surprise the next day, we would be sure and let Mom know to, pack us a lunch because we didn't like tuna surprise.
And Ranger Ed even doing some on-air commercials.
He would make plugs or do plugs of local businesses. Specifically, I remember McDonald's. And he would have a little cheeseburger sitting here and a little package of fries, and then he would have a shake. like a chocolate shake, you know. And then what he would do is like he would hold this up to the camera, and they would do a close up, and he'd like pick up the straw, and all this lovely chocolate shake just kind of cascading off of the straw. And he goes, "Look, rich and thick." My sister and I, whenever we got our shakes, we would do the same thing. It was, "Ooh, rich and thick," and we'd start laughing. So, but yeah, Ranger Ed, you know, he was a nice guy. We always felt like, you know, he was, you know, just kind of a regular guy.
He was handsome. and I'm, you know, I'm not a cowgirl. I've never been a cowgirl, but you know, he had a charm about him. You know, he had a deep voice. He was the all-American. You know, that's what you looked to back. And that's a long time ago. That was in the 50s, even. So, well, I'm thinking I was probably in 3rd grade. So, and 4th, you know. But we loved it.
Who was this larger-than-life man who intrigued and enthralled boys and girls alike? Who was the mystery man who kept them mystified with his chiseled chin and rugged good looks?
I didn't even miss it when I had chicken pox. If it was on, we were watching it.
I had a huge crush on him.
And he was very convincing. He had all of us kids convinced he was a cowboy.
This was a local celebrity, and then I actually went to grade school with his daughter, and when I found out, I was just amazed.
Ranger Ed's daughter, Terry Ann Wilson Williams, digs through a box of photos to unearth the answers to the history that created this cowboy character and what made Ranger Ed Wilson who he was.
Well, the story goes, now he was from a divorced family, unfortunately, too, and hard on the kids, but his mother left him with his grandmother in Unionville, Missouri at the farm while she went off and went to Chicago.
She finds photos of young Ed on the farm, already embracing his ranger look, complete with a cowboy hat. Ed Wilson met Terry Ann's mother somewhere in Kansas. They married, and Terry Ann was born in Hutchinson. At the time, he was a DJ.
And so eventually they landed up in Pittsburgh, and he went for broadcasting there. I've got a picture of him where he had a photo taken of him with a short sleeve shirt at the studio.
That was in 1956. A short time later, his wife made a KODE connection.
Then she knew Johnny Holmes, who was, maybe he was the manager, some kind of manager at KODE, I think he was, and she knew him. So she told Johnny about Dad, so Johnny hires him at KODE. So he may have tried the broadcasting for a while, but nope, wasn't his bag. So they decided to do the Ranger Ed show. And that's how he got started there.
They would visit his grandmother back on the farm. Terry Ann recalls a tender moment in a car ride in their Hudson.
And I would stand up in the seat between Mom and Dad. Mom couldn't get me to settle down, but Dad could. He'd just take his arm around me and say, "Now, Terry, sit down." More than anything, I remember that.
His wandering life would finally end in Joplin, but if he had Hollywood dreams, he would live them out on the TV screen through his alter ego, a cowboy character that made kids feel comfortable and safe.
He was like a father figure, probably, and his demeanor, it was pleasant.
Oh, well, you know, he was our hero, and he was a Texas Ranger. You know, back then, anything Western was like the coolest of the cool.
He did public appearances at the circus, stores, and the Connor Hotel, giving kids a chance to meet their cowboy hero.
He's leaning over the counter where he's standing, and he's shaking her hand, this little girl with little glasses on, and shaking her hand, and there's a little boy in the background there. I thought, wouldn't that be neat if she could see that picture, you know, on TV or something, and say, "Oh my gosh, that's me." This little girl, here he is on a horse. This little girl, she won a contest to ride the pony with Ranger Ed.
By day, he was a friendly cowboy. At home, at night, he wanted to protect his cowpoke persona, not wanting his daughter to acknowledge him publicly.
He didn't want me telling the neighbor kids, but they all knew. That was what's so funny.
But in time, the myth of the man was demystified.
One of my biggest disappointments was when my brother and this is very classic for my brother, told me that Ranger Ed did not ride a horse in to the show every day, and I knew he did. I thought he was a real cowboy.
Ranger Ed's true self was revealed to Randy Turner during a visit to KODE while his dad did some landscaping there.
As I was walking around in the parking lot, Ranger Ed came out, and I was a little bit disappointed because Ranger Ed didn't have a cowboy outfit on. He wasn't wearing boots. He was, he was dressed in really nice clothes. And then worst of all, he left, but not on a horse. He took off in a little sports car.
Not disappointed for long, KODE's Jerry Henson took Randy on a tour of the station.
I don't remember much about the studio, except that it was a lot smaller than I thought, because I thought, you have all these TV programs, it has to be a big place. No, they work all that magic in this little small area.
After writing about his visit on a blog, he gained insight to the show.
A few years after I wrote that article, and I mentioned how Jerry Henson how good he had been to me, and then I find out that Jerry Henson was the one who was responsible for all of this local programming that was on KODE at the time. He was the one who came up with the Bar 12 Ranger. He was the one who came up with Teen Hop.
Terry Ann says her dad spent time helping host Teen Hop after they stopped the Bar 12 show in the late 1960s.
And he would be the host, and he would sit around the tables and talk to the kids.
But his fans remember him most as Ranger Ed. The character Ed Wilson brought to life on a screen came complete with a gun and a badge. That was something the kids could get too when they became a ranger in the Bar 12 Ranger Club.
I do know that my sister and I got some really cool metal buttons to wear, badges, and it had a headshot of Ranger Ed, and then of course it was captioned, "I'm a Bar 12 Ranger," and we were so proud of that because, he was a celebrity. He was famous. And we were just kind of a part of that movement there,
I was a member of the Bar 12 Ranger Club. I had a pin that said, "I'm a Bar 12 Ranger."
They're not alone. David Patterson posted an autographed photo of Ranger Ed on the Facebook group, "If you're from Joplin, raise your hands." He asked, who remembers watching Ranger Ed after school each day? Paula Sherman wrote,
I was a card-carrying Bar 12 Ranger.
And Mark Bybee said, I actually went on the show as a youngster. Ramona Ellis wrote,
I watched this as much as I could.
Gary Box remembered, Terry had her dad come to Emerson grade school one day. It was a special day for all of us. We got our picture with him and an autograph. Corbett Brown answered, when his original horse got too old, he switched to a new one. My father bought his old horse, Trigger. I rode Trigger in the rodeo parade one year and met Ranger Ed. Mike Meacham posted, loved Bar 12 Ranger. Sheila Niles Van Treese shared this photo saying,
This is me and Ranger Ed.
Ranger Ed made kids feel like they could be like him, welcoming them to a fun, safe TV environment after school.
We always felt like, he was, just kind of a regular guy. Not real intimidating or anything like that. And besides that, he had his hat on, and we knew he was one of the good guys.
They were part of a club that connects these fans even today with memories of the charming cowboy, the mystery man on the horse, who was the Bar 12 Ranger, Ed Wilson.
Join us next time when we look back at another Hall of Fame inductee, the Children's Hour. Thanks for watching.